You think 10 years is a safety milestone? That after a decade together, you've made it? That you've overcome the obstacles and can now relax? Well, I have devastating news for you. 10 years isn't an achievement, it's a death sentence. And today I'm going to explain exactly why the majority of couples who end up in my office are precisely in this range. 10 to 15 years of relationship. Not desperate newlyweds, not 30-year veterans. It's you, the ones who thought they had figured it out. Hit that like button right now if you want to know the brutal truth about why your 10-year relationship might be heading toward a cliff without you even realizing it. And comment below telling me, are you in that 10-year range? Because the statistics I'm about to show you will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about relationships. Let's start with a number that's going to freeze your blood. 42% of divorces happen between the 7th and 15th year of relationship. Not in the turbulent early years, as you'd imagine. Not after decades when they can't stand each other anymore. Exactly when you think you've finally figured out how it works, when you've established your routines, when you feel secure and comfortable. You know why this happens? Because you confuse security with complacency. You confuse stability with stagnation. And more dangerously, you confuse familiarity with intimacy. At 10 years, you think you know your partner like the back of your hand, that there are no more surprises, no more discoveries. And there's the first big mistake. You stop paying attention. Imagine for a second that you own a business. In the first years, you work like crazy. You stay late, check every detail, worry about every client, every sale, every feedback. The business grows, stabilizes, then you think, great, now I can relax. The business runs itself. And what happens to businesses whose owners stop paying attention? They go bankrupt. Slowly at first, then all at once. That's exactly what happens with 10-year relationships. You stop investing. You stop doing maintenance. You stop treating your partner like someone you want to impress and start treating them like furniture in the house. They'll always be there. Don't need special care. Don't need constant attention. And here comes the concept that destroys more relationships than infidelity. That's responsible for more separations than financial problems. Slippage. It's like a crack in the foundation of a house. It starts small, almost imperceptible. You don't even notice. But over time, with pressure, with neglect, that crack keeps growing until the entire structure collapses. Slippage starts with tiny things. She stopped making that special coffee you shared on Sunday mornings. He stopped sending those silly messages during the day. You stopped dressing up for each other at home. You stopped casually touching as you passed by in the kitchen. You stopped laughing at each other's bad jokes. Oh, but that's nonsense, you'll say. Those are small things, they don't matter. Wrong. Completely wrong. It's exactly those small things that built your love. And it's exactly those same small things that, when they disappear, destroy that love. Because love isn't a cosmic feeling that simply exists in the air. Love is a set of actions, choices, small gestures repeated consistently over time. When you stop doing these small things, it's not that love gradually diminishes. It's that you stop practicing love, and like any skill that isn't practiced, it atrophies. You don't wake up one day and decide to stop loving. You wake up one day and realize you no longer know how to love this person. Here's a real example that perfectly illustrates this. A couple, together for 12 years. She complained that he never noticed when she dressed up anymore, never complimented her, never showed that he found her beautiful. He countered saying that obviously he still found her beautiful, that this was obvious, that he didn't need to keep saying it all the time. You see the problem? He assumed that because love existed in the past, it would continue existing in the present without maintenance. As if love were a bank account that you deposit in once and never need to touch again. But love is like a fire. If you don't keep adding wood, it goes out. And there's no point pointing to the ashes and saying, but the fire is still here. Look at the ashes. And the most tragic part is that when I asked her what made her feel loved, the answer was simple. When he notices me, when he stops what he's doing and really sees me. It was 5 seconds of genuine attention. 5 seconds that could have saved 12 years of history. But let's go deeper into this analysis, because slippage doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a specific pattern I observe in almost all cases of relationships that end at the 10-year mark. And this pattern has 3 distinct phases. First phase, the illusion of conquest. Between the 8th and 10th year, couples develop what I call veteran syndrome. They look back and see everything they've overcome together. The fights of the early years, the adjustments, maybe a financial crisis, maybe a problem with family, maybe even a past infidelity. And they think, great, we've passed the tests. Now we're a consolidated team. This is the most dangerous trap of mature relationships. Because when you think you've already won, you stop fighting. You stop making an effort. You assume that the relationship is now a straight, obstacle-free road to the end of life. But relationships aren't movies that have a definitive happy ending. Relationships are TV series. Every day is a new episode, and you can be canceled at any time if you don't keep the audience interested. Second phase, automation. This is where the real danger lies. You create routines so established that you stop really seeing each other. He knows she's going to complain about work every Tuesday. She knows he's going to watch football every Saturday. They know exactly how the other will react in each situation, what joke they'll tell, what topic they'll avoid, and superficially, this seems like intimacy. Oh, we know each other so well. But it's actually the opposite of intimacy. Intimacy requires presence, curiosity, constant discovery. When you completely automate your interactions, you're no longer relating to the person, you're relating to your prediction of the person. It's like those couples you see in restaurants, each on their phone, in total silence. They have nothing left to discover about each other because they stopped evolving with each other. They became two lonely people who happened to sleep in the same bed. Third phase, destructive criticism. This is the final phase before the explosion. When slippage accumulates, when automation sets in, the next step is inevitable. You start seeing your partner not as an ally, but as an obstacle to your happiness. All that familiarity that seemed comfortable turns into irritation. The quirks you found funny become sources of anger. The way he chews, the way she arranges things, the way he drives, the way she talks on the phone, everything becomes a source of tension. And worse, you start expressing this irritation through criticism, sarcasm, contempt. And here's the crucial point that most people don't understand. When you start criticizing your partner publicly, whether to friends, family, or even strangers, you're signing the relationship's death certificate. Because every time you externalize a criticism of your partner, you're forcing yourself to defend that position internally. It's basic psychological mechanism. If you badmouth your spouse to your mother, your friend, the Uber driver, you need to justify that criticism to yourself. And to justify, you need to find more evidence that you're right. So you start noticing more flaws, more problems, more reasons to be dissatisfied. It's a vicious cycle that feeds itself. The more you criticize, the more reasons you find to criticize. And your partner, even without knowing about the criticisms, feels that negative energy. They feel they can never please you anymore, that everything they do is wrong. And then they also start defending themselves, counterattacking, emotionally withdrawing. Comment below, have you caught yourself talking badly about your partner to other people? Because if the answer is yes, you need to stop now. That's like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. But let's get to what really matters, how this specifically manifests in 10-year relationships. Because there's something unique about this age range that makes everything more dangerous. At 10 years, you've probably already gone through the major structural decisions. You got married or decided not to marry. You had kids or decided not to have them. You bought a house or decided not to buy one. You defined careers, established social circles, created a shared life, and precisely because of this, the temptation to put it on autopilot is greater. You look around and think, everything's fine. Good house, healthy kids, stable career. The relationship must be fine too. But relationships don't work by exclusion. It's not because other areas of life are organized that love automatically prospers. In fact, it's the opposite. When you have more external responsibilities, house to maintain, kids to raise, careers to manage, you need to work harder to maintain the connection, not less. Because now you have real competitors for your attention and energy. And here comes one of the most disturbing discoveries from my experience. Couples who separate at 10 years almost always say the same thing. Well, we were best friends, but we lost the passion. Or we're great parents together, but we're not a couple anymore. Or we work well as a team, but there's no more romance. You see the pattern? They manage to maintain the functional aspects of their relationship. Practical partnership, friendship, cooperation, but lost romantic and sexual intimacy. And society, couple therapists, even some self-help books will tell you this is normal, that it's natural evolution of the relationship. Lie. This isn't evolution, it's deterioration. Love isn't just friendship with benefits. Love isn't just practical partnership. Love includes desire, includes passion, includes the constant choice to see your partner as a sexual and desirable being, not just as a co-administrator of domestic life. And the reason this happens specifically at 10 years is because that's when you stop making the conscious effort to keep the romantic aspect of the relationship alive. You assume that because you love each other as people, the rest will continue existing magically. But sexual attraction requires intention. Romance requires creativity. Passion requires surprise. And all these things require conscious energy and effort. If you don't actively invest in being desirable to your partner, if you don't create moments of mutual rediscovery, if you don't step out of the comfort zone of total familiarity, you'll inevitably transform into roommates who share bills and responsibilities. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works in practice. 11-year couple, 2 small children. She complains that he never initiates anything sexual anymore, that when they have sex, it seems like he's fulfilling an obligation. He complains that she never dresses sensually anymore, that she always wears loose pajamas and never shows desire for him. When I investigate deeper, I discover that both are right and both are wrong. She stopped dressing sensually because he stopped noticing and commenting when she dressed up. Why make an effort if it's not recognized? He stopped initiating romantic approaches because she always found an excuse. She was tired, had to wake up early, the kids might wake up. It's a cycle of mutual discouragement. Each stopped doing their part because the other stopped first. But here's the issue. It doesn't matter who stopped first. What matters is who will have the maturity to restart, even without guarantee of immediate reciprocity. And this brings us to the first major deadly mistake of 10-year couples, assuming that love is automatic. That because you loved intensely in the past, that love will perpetuate in the present without active maintenance. Love isn't a permanent achievement, it's a daily practice. It's like being physically fit. You don't go to the gym for 2 years, get the perfect body, and then can be sedentary for the rest of your life, assuming you'll stay in shape. Your body will deteriorate. Similarly, if you stop practicing acts of love, gestures of love, expressions of love, love atrophies. And when I say acts of love, I'm not talking about big romantic gestures that are expensive and elaborate. I'm talking about the micro actions that build intimacy. Noticing when your partner changes their hair, sending a random message during the day saying you're thinking of them, casually touching as you pass by each other, asking a genuine question about how their day was, and actually listening to the answer. It's these small actions repeated consistently that create and maintain the feeling of being loved, seen, valued. And it's exactly these actions that 10-year couples stop doing, because they assume that we already know we love each other, we don't need to keep showing it all the time. The second deadly mistake is stopping communicating about trivial things. Mature couples develop a communication efficiency that is actually a communication deficiency. They only talk about important things: bills, kids, schedule, practical problems. They stop sharing random thoughts, silly observations, small fears, everyday hopes. They stop telling details of the day that have no practical relevance but have emotional relevance. They stop asking curious questions about their partner's inner life. And then you ask me, but why talk about trivial things? We have important things to resolve. Exactly. You've turned your relationship into a company. You only communicate when there's a business agenda. And where's the intimacy in that? Where's the human connection? Intimacy is built precisely in the sharing of trivial things. It's when you tell about the strange dream you had, when you share a song that moved you, when you talk about a childhood memory that came out of nowhere. These apparently irrelevant conversations are what creates the sensation of truly knowing and being known by the other. 10-year couples frequently develop communication so efficient that they completely lose the ability to simply converse for pleasure. Every interaction has a practical objective, and relationships need unproductive time, conversations that lead nowhere, moments of connection without an agenda. The third deadly mistake is the most destructive of all: criticizing publicly instead of defending. When you've been together for 10 years, it's tempting to use the relationship as social comedy material, making jokes about your partner's quirks, complaining publicly about their habits, telling stories that make them seem inadequate or incompetent. Oh, my husband can't even change a light bulb. My wife takes 3 hours to choose an outfit. He gets lost even going to the supermarket. They seem like harmless jokes, but they're stabs at your partner's dignity. Here's what happens when you do this. First, you publicly humiliate the person you chose to share your life with. Second, you train other people to disrespect your partner. Third, you internally strengthen a negative narrative about this person. But most seriously, you break the sacred code of relationships, being your partner's lawyer in the world. When you are in public, you should be the first line of defense for your companion's dignity. Even if they have flaws, even if you have private problems, in public, you should present them in the best possible way. This isn't fakeness. It's loyalty. It's protection. It's recognizing that if you chose this person to share your life, they deserve to be treated with respect, especially by you. And when I observe couples who separate at 10 years, I almost always find a history of mutual public criticism. They trained friends, family, and even strangers to see flaws in their partner. And eventually, they themselves started believing in this negative narrative they created. Comment here. Have you made public jokes about your partner's flaws? Because if so, you need to stop immediately and start doing the opposite, publicly highlighting their qualities. But now let's get to the solution. Because there's no point in just diagnosing the problem without giving tools to solve it. And the solution that has transformed the most relationships in my experience can be summarized in 3 words: hit send now. The philosophy is simple. When something small bothers you in the relationship, you address it immediately. Don't let it accumulate. Don't wait for it to become a big problem. Don't hold resentment. You communicate in the moment, directly but respectfully. Honey, when you're on your phone while I'm talking, I feel like what I'm saying isn't important to you. Done. Communicated. Resolved. It doesn't turn into a fight about, you never listen to me, doesn't accumulate hurt, doesn't transform into a time bomb. Most couples do the opposite. They let small irritations accumulate until they explode in a discussion about everything that's wrong. And then the conversation becomes a war, a list of historical accusations, a tribunal where each tries to prove they're more right. Hit Send Now prevents this. It treats each issue individually at the moment it arises, when it's still small and manageable. It's like preventive relationship maintenance, but attention, hit send. Now doesn't mean being impulsive or uncontrolled. It means being honest and direct about your needs and feelings, but constructively. It's saying, I need this, instead of, you always do that. It's focusing on what you want to happen, not on what you want to stop happening. And here's the most important trick. Hit send. Now works better when you also apply the principle to positive things. Did you feel gratitude? Express it immediately. Did you notice something beautiful about your partner? Comment right away. Did you feel desire? Communicate it. Did you have a loving thought? Share it. Immediate communication of positive feelings is as important as immediate communication of problems, because relationships need constant feedback, both about what's working and what needs adjustment. 10-year couples frequently assume that compliments and expressions of affection are unnecessary because we already know we love each other. But the human brain needs regular positive reinforcement to maintain behaviors. If you stop praising and encouraging, eventually your partner stops doing the things you value. It's basic psychology applied to relationships. You want more affection? Immediately celebrate when you receive affection. You want more help at home? Think effusively when you receive help. You want more romantic initiative? Respond enthusiastically when it happens. But let's be practical. How to implement this in 10-year relationships that are already on autopilot? First step, agree that you're going to try. Talk openly about the concept of slippage. Acknowledge that you may have let some things deteriorate. It's not about guilt, it's about consciously choosing to reverse the process. Second step, implement what I call weekly check-ins. Once a week, sit together for 15 minutes and ask 3 simple questions. What did you feel worked well between us this week? What would you like to be different next week? How can I better support you in the coming days? It's not formal couple therapy. It's preventive maintenance. It's creating a sacred space for small adjustments before they become big problems. And it's crucial that this check-in be regular and protected. It can't be canceled because other priorities arose. Third step, start dating each other consciously again. This means creating structured moments where you step out of domestic life administrators mode and enter 2 people who chose to love each other mode. It could be a weekly date. It could be a walk together every day after dinner. It could be 15 minutes every morning having coffee and talking before the day starts. The format doesn't matter. What matters is having time dedicated exclusively to the connection between you, without practical agenda, without phone, without distractions. And here's the crucial point. This time needs to be treated as sacred. It can't be canceled because something more important came up. Because there's nothing more important than the foundation of the relationship. If the foundation cracks, the entire structure collapses, including the kids, the house, the careers you're prioritizing above the connection. Fourth step, rediscover curiosity about each other. This might seem strange after 10 years, but you need to accept that people constantly change. The human being next to you today isn't exactly the same as 5 years ago. New fears, new hopes, new perspectives. Start asking questions as if you were meeting this person for the first time. What's been exciting you lately? What kind of music have you been listening to? If you could change one thing about your routine, what would it be? What was the best moment of your month? They're simple questions, but they open windows into your partner's inner life. And you'll be surprised by how many things you don't know about someone you've been sharing a bed with for a decade. Fifth step, start investing in being desirable again. This isn't necessarily about physical appearance, although taking care of yourself is important. It's about keeping alive the energy that made your partner fall in love with you at the beginning. If you were funny, start making jokes again. If you were adventurous, propose new experiences. If you were affectionate, return to constant gestures of affection. If you were mysterious, create some surprises. The point is not to settle into the comfortable version of yourselves. Relationships need evolution, novelty, mutual growth. If you become stagnant as people, the relationship also becomes stagnant. And finally, sixth step, publicly protect the relationship's image. Stop complaining about your partner to other people. Stop making jokes at their expense. Start speaking positively about your relationship and about your companion in social contexts. This isn't pretending everything is perfect. It's choosing to focus on what's working instead of feeding negative narratives. And you'll discover that the more you speak well of your relationship, the more reasons you find to like it. It's a virtuous cycle that works opposite to the vicious cycle of criticism. The more you highlight positive aspects of your partner, the more positive aspects you start to notice. And your partner, feeling this positive energy, naturally becomes more motivated to continue being a good version of themselves. Look, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Most relationships that reach 10 years and start showing these symptoms don't survive. Not because the problems are unsolvable, but because people choose the easier path, giving up and starting over with someone else. It's simpler to seek that beginning of relationship energy with someone new than to do the hard work of rekindling the flame with whoever is already by your side. It's more exciting to be discovered by a stranger than to be rediscovered by someone who already knows all your flaws. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. If you don't develop the skills to keep a relationship alive at 10 years, you're going to repeat exactly the same pattern in the next one, and in the one after that. Because the problem isn't the person you're with. The problem is the destructive habits you develop in long relationships. You can change partners as many times as you want, but if you don't learn to deal with slippage, if you don't learn to communicate immediately, if you don't learn to maintain curiosity and constant investment, all your relationships will follow the same trajectory: initial passion, stabilization, accommodation, deterioration, and look how ironic, people who separate at 10 years frequently have subsequent relationships that last about 10 years. Because 10 years is the time it takes to go through the initial passion phase, establish routine, and reach the point where you need to consciously choose to keep love alive. The difference between couples who stay together forever and couples who separate at 10 years isn't compatibility. It's not luck. It's not finding the right person. It's the willingness to do the conscious work of keeping a relationship alive when it stops being automatic. Because relationships aren't like romantic movies that end and they lived happily ever after. Relationships are like gardening. You can have the best seeds, the best soil, perfect conditions. But if you plant and never water again, never prune again, never care again, the plants will die. And then there's no point blaming the seeds. Same thing with relationships. You might have had the most passionate beginning, the most perfect compatibility, the strongest connection. But if you stop investing time, attention, care, communication, curiosity, conscious effort, the relationship withers. And there's no point blaming your partner or saying you lost the magic. The magic doesn't disappear by itself. You stop creating magic. So here's my challenge for you. If you're in that critical 10-year range, if you recognized some of the patterns I described, if you feel the relationship has gone on autopilot, you have a choice to make. You can continue assuming that true love doesn't need effort, that if it's meant to be, it will be naturally, that good relationships don't require work. And statistically, you have a 42% chance of being in my office in the next 5 years. Or you can accept that mature love requires intention, that lasting intimacy requires constant maintenance, that extraordinary relationships are the result of conscious daily choices, not cosmic coincidences. The difference between these two paths isn't in circumstances. It's in mindset. Couples who stay together forever don't have fewer problems than couples who separate. They have different skills for dealing with problems, and these skills can be learned. At any age, at any stage of the relationship, regardless of how many mistakes you've already made. But you need to want to learn. You need to be willing to step out of the comfort zone of total familiarity. You need to accept that being good at long relationships is a competency that develops like any other competency in life. And like any competency, it requires constant practice, regular feedback, and willingness to continuously improve. So hit that, like if you're willing to do this work. And comment telling me, which of these 10-year traps do you recognize in your relationship? Slippage, automated communication, public criticism, lack of mutual curiosity? Don't be afraid to be honest. Recognizing the problem is the first step to solving it. And remember, extraordinary relationships don't happen by accident. They're consciously built, intentionally maintained, and fiercely defended against the forces that constantly try to destroy them. The question isn't whether your relationship will face challenges at 10 years. The question is whether you'll have the tools and mindset to overcome them. And now you do. Use them well. Because in the end, the difference between till death do us part and it didn't work out is often just the willingness to treat your love as something too valuable to be neglected. And if you've made it this far, if you've invested 10 years building a life together, that love deserves all the fight in the world. Don't let the 10-year mark be the end of the story. Make it the beginning of a new chapter, more conscious, more intentional, stronger. Because you deserve it. And your love deserves it too.